Every farm has a story. When it comes to dairy farming, these stories are often only heard by the animals raised, the land stewarded, and the family that makes it all possible. Join me, Dairy Gal Val, as I interview individuals from across the dairy industry, both within the United States and across the globe, discussing topics like farm management, the food industry, ag business and technology, and most importantly, their farm story. This is the Dairy Hour Podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Dairy Hour Podcast. I am your host, Dairy Gal Val. This episode is brought to you by 4D Ag Fashion and 4D Ag World, two sister ag businesses, both based out of Texas. One of my favorite things that they do have are the calf coats. We use a ton of them on the farm. Love them. They are adorable. They come in amazing different colors. They also have things for you, things for the barn, all sorts of different things. So check them out and do some Christmas shopping because everyone needs calf coats and waterproof bibs for Christmas. 4dagfashion.com for those, 4D Ag World for more of their barn supplies, or you can find them on social media. They are fantastic. And if you reach out to them, they will help you find whatever you are looking for. So 4D Ag World and 4D Ag Fashion, check them out. I am joined today by Emily Reuschel. Oh my gosh, Reuschel. No,
it's okay. Reuschel.
Reuschel. Geez,
It's okay.
I was going to do that because I had it in my head one way and then it goes the other way.
You know what? I think even within my husband's family, people pronounce it differently. So maybe you're just putting a fancy flair. It's fine.
It's the New York accent way of saying it. We're just going to go with that.
It's fine.
And the fact that I have not had enough coffee yet today on a Monday. So,
I mean, amen. Oh my gosh.
See, apparently we both need more coffee, so it's good. So Emily, you kind of have a unique position within ag. I don't know if you want to just kind of start off. This episode's going to be a little bit fun. We're going to talk to Emily about her life, how she ended up where she is, but then we're actually, with the new year impending at the end of this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about goal. I know, seriously, like I don't know where 2023 went. It's gone. Yes. We're like, yeah.
I feel that so deeply. I'm like, what do you mean December is Friday? Like, didn't we just do this?
Yes. Yeah, and actually this episode will come out in December, so like it's really like time is flying
Bananas.
by. So at the end, we're actually going to talk about goal setting, whether or not you have set goals for yourself before, or you want to get into it. This is going to be a good little boot in your rear to set some goals and do big things in life. So Emily, if you want to start by chatting a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis, besides holding a very adorable sleeping child.
Yes, I was gonna say I have my almost 6-week-old, which is, speaking of time flying, like absolutely bananas. She is currently sleeping, and we're going to manifest that she's going to continue to do that for us. So that is the joy of the season that I'm in right now. I am a full-time entrepreneur at this point, but that is never something I imagined for my life, much less the very niche specific work that I'm doing. Professionally, I started in what I thought was going to be my forever career as a 4th grade teacher. You know, they write country songs about that. The teacher and the farmer, living the small town dream. Like that is 100% where I expected my life to go. And after 5 years of teaching 4th grade, I, on a total leap of faith, left the classroom for the nonprofit space. I served as the director of youth and family development for our local YMCA, which is where I learned the ins and outs of marketing and fundraising and being a boss and gosh, just a little bit of everything and anything. And it was there that the work that I'm doing now began. About halfway through my time at the Y, I had my second, I can't even just say my daughter anymore because now I have 2 of them, but my second child was 6 months postpartum and got to this moment where I was like, everything around me is so good. I have this job that I love, my second career. I finally found it. Things are going so well. I'm having a big impact in my community. Like our farm is growing. I have these 2 beautiful children. Like on paper, check all the boxes. I have done it. I am so blessed. And I am and was, but there was something inside me that was like, I don't even like the way I feel. This is not how I imagined adulting to be, which I've come to find out a lot of women in this space experience of, okay, I did all of the things that society or they or my family, whoever told me was going to be what makes me happy. Why do I still feel low key miserable? And then we like double down on this shame spiral of why can't I just be grateful? Like I should have gratitude for all these things in my life. And I for sure did, but something wasn't quite right. So it started with me just wanting to feel better in my body. You know, anyone who has brought babies to the world knows that everything is just really wonky in that 6-month period, much less when you have two under two. And I just wanted to have energy to be the kind of mom that I wanted to be. I wanted to feel good. I didn't want to feel so stinking burnout at the end of every day. And so I started a health journey that led me to the world of personal growth and development and this idea of habits and goal setting. And it was like someone turned on the lights. All of a sudden, I was understanding these different parts of myself and what it meant to be intentional in a way that I've never considered before. I think me, like many of us, grew up in this like 90s diet culture of trying to like hate ourselves into existing a different way. And I'm like, I don't want that. I have this baby girl in the world. Like, I want to know what it looks like to love myself and take care of myself. Like I said, from a place of like love and intentionality and compassion, not trying to fundamentally change who I was to fit a different body type or mold or whatnot. So after this really profound health and personal growth journey, excuse me, talk about editing. Go ahead and chop that out or not. Welcome.
We just wing it around here.
We just roll with it. How come like as soon as you start talking, that's when like all of a sudden you have a tickle in your throat or you start coughing, even though you've existed for weeks without a single cough. Anyway.
I feel you.
Anyway, so as I got deeper down this journey, I felt like I was existing in multiple worlds. Like here is the Emily that's into this personal growth and development. And I was training for a half marathon, which when I say that, I think a lot of people assume like, oh, you've always been an athlete. No. Training for a half marathon was like quite literally the opposite of anything I had ever thought was possible for myself. And then at that same time was trying to figure out what does it mean to be a farm wife and be a farm mom. I did not grow up in agriculture. I certainly had my expectations around what I thought that was going to be like, and some of them were true and most of them were not. And so I just kept feeling like I'm the only person in my zip code that's thinking about these things, which now looking back on it was not true, but that's how it felt. And that can be a really isolating feeling to be like, how do I fit into this world of farm wifery and rural momhood while also wanting to pursue health and intentionality and these goals and dreams that feel larger than life without wanting to leave my small town? And ultimately, that's what through a very long domino effect brought me to the work that I'm doing today. So now I'm a full-time entrepreneur, podcaster, coach, host of retreats, hoster of retreats and masterminds, like community leader, all of the above. And the through line of my work is ultimately helping women in rural communities, small towns, women in agriculture get clear on what they really want and then grow the community and confidence to fully step into it. And whatever that looks like for them. And that's my favorite part of what I do is I'm not the kind of coach that has the one size fits all, like, here are the 10 steps to be able to do exactly what I do, or to become this specific type of business owner. Like, really the work that I'm passionate about is helping women tap into what they really want in the way that makes sense for them in the season that they're in. Because like I said, so many of us have been checking all of the boxes that have worked for someone else or that we've been told are the keys to success. But I care a lot about helping women rediscover what it is that lights their fire, whether that is starting the business or launching a podcast, or whether that is transitioning out of the career that they thought they were going to live forever and into role as a stay-at-home mom. So I do that a lot of different ways, but that's my favorite part about what I'm doing today.
It's definitely a huge thing um to be able to find yourself as a mom and be able to realize that you can first and foremost be a mom,
Mm-hmm.
but you also need to find yourself too, because you're definitely not the same person once you
Mm-hmm.
become a mom as you are after you become a mom. And I
Yeah.
do, like, as much as people say like, oh, you have to live for your kids, you have to live for your kids, like you, everything that you do is for your kids, you're not going to be the best person for
Mm-hmm.
you if all you do is live for your kids. Like you have to have something to be excited about, something that gets you out of bed in the morning. You have to have that for yourself in order to instill that in your kids. And that's
Yeah.
something that I've basically struggled with the balance of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's as I, kind of struggle through it, I'm finding my grounds, and I'm finding that, as much as I'm there to support my kids, it's really cool when they're there to support you too. Like
Mm-hmm.
they have just these little things. Mom, guess what? My whole class, we had 10 minutes of free time on our Chromebooks today, and we watched all of your YouTube shorts. And I'm like,
Yay.
so this third grade class just learned all they need to learn about cows, and they get to see my girl's mom like do things, be, have that quote unquote space on YouTube. Or they'll be like, oh, I was listening to your podcast on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, which I don't know how much of it they have actually absorb as far as listening to
Mm-hmm.
the podcast, but that's cool because they're out there and they're like, they have their own way at 8 years old of like being proud of their mom and like the things that
Mm-hmm.
she does. And it's neat to see that. And I can do that and chase my own dreams while also instilling that like want to do big things in my own children. So
Yeah.
it's special to me, and it's definitely a journey, and it's a journey that's not over, but it definitely makes you feel
Mm-hmm.
good about yourself that you're teaching them to be strong, independent young people that know that, your life's not over when you have kids. Your life is just beginning, and there's so many
Yeah.
different things out there that you can do to show them what a great person that they can be.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
definitely feel that.
Yeah, motherhood was like really the first major time that I can look back and felt so grounded in what it looked like to trust myself. As a new mom, you're getting inundated with
Oh
do
my
this,
gosh.
don't do that, blah, 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 blah. And I give, that 7 years ago version of me so much credit because that was the time I was like, no, I cannot listen to all of this noise. I'm going to do what instinctually makes sense for me and my family,
Yep.
even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And like looking back, I think that's so remarkable because I was being inundated with so many different things. And there was so many other times in my life that I did what other people expected of me. And I think it was just such a beautiful representation of coming into myself. Like you said, like really finding who I was through motherhood and being more confident in my identity than ever. And like you said, like I love my kids more than anything, but I have found I am the best mom to them when I prioritize the things that make me feel good, whether it's going out on a walk or training for that half marathon or building a business or whatever. When I am able to fully pursue who I am and fill that cup and pursue my passions, like I can show up in the highest capacity possible for them in a totally different way than if I was burning myself out purely for their behalf. And that's where I feel like a lot of women that I know are starting to discover of like, oh my gosh, I've given every single piece of myself to my kids and like I feel totally drained and miserable. So I love that, we're aligned in that it's so cliche to say you can't pour from an empty cup. Okay, yeah, but it's
It's
true.
true. 100% true. Um, so now that we've discovered that that's definitely a thing, and you're a hoster, we do like the new term hoster. That's
I am a hoster. I've
that's
never said
now
that
like
before.
copyrighted, like all the things. Emily Hoster.
Hoster. I
Um,
mean, I really struggle to like boil everything I do down to like a singular term. So maybe that's it. I am just a hoster.
Yes. And
I'm
not
a
the
people
hostess with the
gatherer.
mostest, you're the hoster with the moster.
I think I'm like a people collector. Like I just find like people that I don't know. That sounds weird, but
It's okay.
building community is so important to me, and not just like surface level, oh, we know each other, but like really get in the weeds. Like I am here for you for everything you've been, everything that you are, everything that you're going to be. I see all of the parts in you that feel ugly sometimes, and that, you know, like facing the hard stuff and helping you work through that while also pushing you to grow into the person you're meant to be. Like that's what I care so much about, and that's what I feel like is so transformational about the work that I've done and the experiences I've been able to provide for people, is that like we get real deep real fast.
That's not a bad thing to get deep real fast. So,
Mm-hmm.
so you are married to a farmer,
Mm-hmm.
but you are not a farmer at
No.
birth.
No.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about growing up, what your childhood was like, and then I guess lead into meeting your farmer? And
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in what I thought was a small town. Like I thought that we were pretty redneck because I like went to the county fair and our town was surrounded by cornfields, which yes, I understand that in the grand scheme of the world, like I did live in a small town. You know, a lot of the people I went to college with were from the Chicagoland area. And so when they'd come down to visit home with me, they'd be like, oh my God, there's cows.
wait a second, what is that?
What is that? What's that tractor driving down the road? But I certainly had no personal connection to ag other than existing in a community that had originally been built around agriculture. Um, and so, yeah, I went to college in the middle of Illinois in Bloomington with a lot of friends from Chicago. And so I was like the small town girl in that pool of the world.
So,
Um,
what did your parents do for
my
career?
mom, yeah, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad worked at our local quarry.
Okay.
He actually is permanently disabled both physically and mentally, and so he worked in the scale house and
Mhm.
um you know, had a career that provided for our family, and for that I'm
That's
grateful.
great.
But yeah, I guess before that, you know, my grandma was a school teacher. Gosh, I don't know, that's like getting into a whole different thing, but no one was connected to ag
Yeah.
other than my grandma remembering when they were growing up, you know, having chickens and going out and doing things like that, but certainly not out on the farm. And I knew even before I met my husband that I wanted to live more rurally than the way I grew up. I didn't want to raise my family in a neighborhood in suburbia, so to speak. I just thought that that was going to be a little bit more out of St. Louis. I thought I'd be like an hour away from St.
Sure.
Louis than where I grew up. And so it wasn't like totally left field when I met my husband, because he from the beginning was like, if we're going to be serious, just so you know, like I'm moving back to the farm. And I'm like, that's fine. Like I love that. I'm
He's
totally
like, I want
game.
to live in the middle of nowhere. This is game on goals.
Right.
Let's do this.
Right. I'm here for this. You know, it wasn't like I met him and my big city dreams were like set on fire. And I, you know, like it was very aligned with where I envisioned. Like I've just always been the kind of person that the further away I get from, oh, what's that quote? It's like a Zach Brown band song, like drive until the city lights dissolve into a country sky. Hopefully I didn't botch that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I just like, even when I studied abroad in college in Barcelona,
Oh,
it was like, yeah, it was super cool. Anytime that we got out of town for whatever reason, like I remember even we spent 5 days in Morocco, which is like a totally different experience. But you know, we spent a few days in Marrakesh, like one of the bigger cities, and then we also spent a few days in a very, very rural area with like a host family. And I remember even just being in the middle of freaking nowhere, Morocco, like this is Africa, and being like, this feels more at home than anything else has in the last 3 months, which is crazy. Like surrounded by people from a totally different way of growing up, a totally different religion and belief system, and there in the middle of nowhere because I can see the stars. I'm like, this feels like home. So it certainly wasn't like out of the realm of possibility when I met my husband that this is where I would end up. It's just, you know,
Thankfully, it all worked out for you, right?
yeah, how it was always meant to be. So yeah, I met him. He had served in the military for 5 years. I was about to do my student teaching after walking at graduation because I screwed everything up by going abroad. Totally worth it, by the way. And so
No
he
screw
was
ups here.
right. He was starting his freshman year. When I tell people I met my husband as he was starting his freshman year, as I was graduating, they're like, what? I'm like, no, he was a non-traditional student. It wasn't weird. I wasn't going after like kids straight out of high school or anything. Yeah. So I was literally the first girl he met on his college campus, which actually wasn't where I was in school. I had moved my brother into his actual legit real freshman year, decided to stay the night with a friend that I had made through working at summer camp, who just so happened to at the time be dating my husband's best friend from high school, who he had moved in with to start. Anyway,
Call it fate.
long story. We were pretty much serious from the beginning. We were long distance for a few months before I decided to move down there because why not? You know, new boyfriend moved to his college town. But ultimately, I knew that I didn't want to stay in my college town. Moving home didn't make sense for me. So it was kind of like, well, I can get a teaching job anywhere. Like, why not just move here? And so the rest is history. We finished out our time together in Southern Illinois, you know, hiking every weekend and going to the wineries like a bunch of fools. And then,
Ooh,
it was great. It was a great place to live.
good chapter in life.
It really was. So I
Work
call it
during the
my
week, wineries on the weekends. What more can you ask for, right?
I call it my college 2.0 era because I was like a working professional and had real money. I mean, on a teacher salary, but to a college kid, like
Hey,
we're
living
bankrolling.
large.
Right. And then we would like go act like college kids on the weekend, which was such an interesting dichotomy, but so fun. And then we moved back to the farm. And not only that, we moved up here in June. I was hired to start as a teacher up here in August. So I had the summer to kind of figure life out, but he was still working an internship somewhere else. So I got dumped onto the farm, immediately got pregnant. So I spent that first couple of months alone in my first trimester, not knowing anyone other than my in-laws. So talk about figuring something out, man. It was a rough time. But anyway, I don't even know what tangent we're on. I met my husband, we got married, I moved here, got pregnant, started, teaching in the school where I thought I would teach for the rest of my life. On top of that, one of his relatives had been in my classroom before I was and retired. So everything in the room already said Mrs. Reuschel. So I'm like, I am the new Mrs. Reuschel embodied. This is my life forever. Here we go. And yeah, here we sit, gosh, 7 years later, like I could have never predicted that our life would look the way it does today, ever.
That's not a bad thing.
No.
It worked out the way it was supposed to.
Oh, absolutely. That's where, I once spoke to a CEO program, which is like an entrepreneurship class for high school students that's done here locally. And one of the boys was like, well, knowing what you know now, don't you wish you would have just studied business in college? And I'm like, oh, no. 19-year-old me was not ready to absorb that kind of information. I did think that I was going to study business because that's what everyone else was doing. And about a week into that, realized that was not the trajectory my life was supposed to go down. Econ and accounting are hard.
Yeah, no, thank you.
No, thank you. That is not the path of my life. Like everything that I know how to do in business, I've learned, but everything that I do well in my business are skills that I honed from being a classroom teacher and working in the nonprofit space and, working at summer camps and learning people and how to ask good questions and ultimately like helping women get from where they are to where they want to be. Not that different of a process than helping a fourth grader get from where they are to where they need to be.
Yes.
So it's just funny because I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially in those college years, whether or not you went to college or a different path. But, as that, 17 to 22-year-old, what are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to do? Get the right internship, get the right degree, do this, do that. And it's like, you will always end up exactly where you're meant to be. Like,
Mm-hmm.
stop putting so much pressure on yourself. And I mean, it sounds like lame to say follow your joy, but take the next right step, because it is always going to get you to down this path that you could never see. Like, there is no part of anything that could have explained to me at 18, like, you're going to build a business online with people not only across the country but across the world, and you're going to coach them on, how to live confident, fulfilled lives that aligns with their like intuition and value system. Like, I would have looked at you and been like,
Huh?
what's a podcast? Like, let's be honest. I remember, oh my gosh, sitting in my sorority house being like, I wish I could just get paid to be on it. Not Instagram wasn't even a thing. Wish I could just get paid to sit on Facebook all day. Joke's on me. I do have to be on Facebook, and it's not my favorite part of my job.
Yeah, things definitely take a turn to where they're supposed to be if you let them, and that's always a good thing. But I
Yeah.
definitely think that it is crazy that as a society we expect someone who is 16 or 17 to make a decision on what you want to do for the rest of your life. Where do you want to go to college? Where do you want to be
Mm-hmm.
indebted to for God knows how
Yes.
long? Like, just throw you to the wolves. Like, you're still a
Right.
kid, but you need to know what you're going to do for the next 40 years and at least,
Right.
and just here invest everything that you have into it. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
It,
Thankfully I knew I wanted to do something in dairy, so I went for what every dairy kid goes for, because
mm-hmm.
when you know you're going to be in dairy, like, just go for dairy science and the rest
Yeah.
works itself out. So thankfully I had a good enough basis that I wanted to do something in dairy, but also, like, I definitely, there's a lot of twists and turns that I didn't see coming
Mm-hmm.
when I was a college kid. And I was also the college kid that, like, if I didn't get straight A's, 4.0, all the things, like, my life was going to come to an end. So,
Right. Which is like so funny looking back on it. Like,
yes, which
why? Why were we so stressed?
I did good. And, like, that's fine. But, like, I'm like, oh, okay. Because, I think one semester I got a 3.99 and my life was effectively ruined. I was like,
Right.
this is not okay. We
Gosh,
cannot have this.
and then we
And
all
it was
wonder why we struggle with anxiety in our 30s.
seriously, like, I was mortified. And it was just because I took that welding class and he gave me, like, just one mark under where it was, like, not quite perfect. And I was like, oh, this is not acceptable at all. So, do you want to talk a little bit more about your husband's farm? And I know you said it's a generational farm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we grow about 1,500 acres of corn and soybeans. And I think my favorite thing about watching my husband come back to the farm and, kind of find his own way in it is how willing he is to experiment and try new things. Like, we are big into trying all different kinds of systems for strip tillage or cover crops, or gosh, I don't even know what kinds of funky stuff like he's into. And so that's been really fun to watch him be okay with doing things different than anyone else. And I think that was kind of my first example of what that looks like. Is he doesn't care if all the farmers at the gas station are talking about, oh, what's that Andrew Reuschel doing on that field? Like, rah, rah. Like, he doesn't care. And he's just so passionate about trying new things and being okay if it doesn't work out. And okay, how can we do this? How can we try that? And I think part of that goes back to, he's an Enneagram 5. I don't know if you're into the Enneagram, but he's like the collector of information and needs to like know everything and figure it all out. And so on our farm, on the day-to-day operation, it is him and his dad working alongside of each other. And then, of course, my mother-in-law is a huge support system in all of that. And just last year, I started learning to drive the tractor, and then I found myself pregnant with a newborn. So we'll put that one on a shelf for a while. I think someday I know I would like to be a little bit more involved in the day-to-day. I would at least like enough. I like to know enough to help if there's a moment where it's needed.
Yep.
Because it is just my husband and father-in-law. So we think, oh gosh, if something were to happen and I don't know how to do anything and it's the middle of harvest, like
Yep.
that's a pickle. But right now, the role that makes the most sense is me just taking care of life on the home front. Because ultimately, if I'm in the tractor, someone else is taking care of the kids, and that's not necessarily helpful for us either. So right now, harvest for us just looks like me holding down the fort. And for this year, gosh, that was even more crazy than ever because I was doing it in my last month of pregnancy, which was chaos. But yeah, I
But did you get the
really,
crops all in before you had the baby?
oh my gosh, we were like over 90% done. Like
Oh, you
she
almost
was,
made it.
I know, like she was born on a Thursday. My father-in-law did like a few days by himself. My husband went back out on Sunday and they finished up. Like, can you even imagine? Because that's what when we found out we were pregnant, we did the math. We were like, oh my gosh, a
Oh,
harvest
crap.
baby. Like thankfully it was our third, so I couldn't be that anxious about it. Had it been our first, I think I would have been a totally different situation.
Yes.
Both my first two were March babies, so we avoided both planting and harvest.
Yes.
But yeah, we were done enough. But I always forget, it doesn't matter how many years we do this, how much work comes after harvest. We're like, yeah, the harvest is done. Like,
And then you're
daddy's
like,
gonna be
oh,
home. Then I'm like,
no.
cool. What is all of this other work that you're doing? Like,
Yeah.
every year I make like a reel about it because I forget every year and everyone comments, oh my God, same. Like, why do
Yes.
we even celebrate the end of harvest? It's not the end, but
No, it's
yeah,
never ending.
it's never
Especially
ending.
get a dairy farm and then it's really never ending
I,
because you're like, oh, now we have to winterize everything and get the cows ready for winter and get the curtains like all,
mm-hmm.
where they're supposed to be and do this and
Yes.
oh, we have to like spread manure. Oh, wait. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah. And
completely feel that.
that is my, another favorite thing about the work that I'm doing is I'm getting to understand on a very intimate level the inner workings of so many different sectors of the ag industry in a way that I just would have never, because obviously, like, we don't have livestock at all. And so, working with women in a one-on-one capacity or in a mastermind who are running dairy operations or who are in the crop insurance industry or who are in seed sales, like, I am intimately getting to know the ins and outs of the great parts of it and the fun and exciting, like, dream building parts of it, and also the parts that are really hard and the ways that those women feel stuck and the changes they want to make and what intergenerational legacy looks like in those types of situations. There's so many complicated intricacies to it. And so getting to work with women as they navigate all of this has given me a totally different perspective and an insider scoop on the ag industry as a whole in a way that's been really fun to bring those conversations to my husband, because I know things about crop insurance I would have never gotten involved with on our own operation just because it's not the way that we're structured. And so it's been really cool. Like, Andrew's like, you, I think, know more people in ag than I do at this point. And I'm like, heck yeah, I do. Or he'll like start talking about such and such podcasts that he heard. He's big into listening to podcasts. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I have that person's number in my phone. Like, we're friends. And he's like, what? It's just wild.
It is. And it's funny how rapidly things are changing and just how connected you can be with people that you would have never been connected with before. Even yeah, because I mean I grew up through the 90s where,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook wasn't even a thing and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, I can like stay in touch with my college friends. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my goodness. And now it's like, oh, like
Yeah.
more than you need to know about anyone most of the time
Yes. Which
because
is a blessing and a curse. But
oh
like,
yes.
I have connections and friends in agriculture in Australia and Mexico and Canada and probably every state in this country. Actually, I was thinking the other day, like, I want to get out a map and like pinpoint where all the people I know are, because it's
It is
wild.
wild.
And
It's
it's
very
just
cool.
it's so cool because I know, and I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this, like, care so much about what it looks like to advocate for our industry and understands all the ins and outs of it. And so in having all of these different connections and such a bigger understanding of what the picture of agriculture looks like is just gives us a different way to move that conversation forward.
Yeah.
um Having not grown up in ag, none of my family is in agriculture, and so And on top of that, a lot of them live in cities like Los Angeles and Chicago and New York and London. Like their perception of ag is obviously going to look different and be skewed a certain way just based on the information they're absorbing and the people that they're around. And so the more holistic view I can bring into my conversations with them, like that's being able to invite a different set of information forward. And I love being able to, you know, being able to facilitate that. I'm so sorry that I cannot stop coughing.
You're good.
Where did this come from? I haven't coughed in days.
You're good. That's how that works, especially when you have kids and you have germs coming in and all these different things. So I completely feel that. And it is really fascinating, just the connections that you can make all around the world, and, all these different people that you get to meet, learn their experiences, get to know them, do all the different things. And even on my podcast, getting to interview different people from around the world, different countries, and just how different dairy specifically is in those different countries it's really cool. I recently interviewed someone from Canada, and we're not geographically that far apart, but it's just fascinating how different farming is just north of where I am. So it's it's really cool. So I love what you're doing, and it's just so fascinating how you got to where you are and how you're finding your journey into where you're truly happy. And that's, as a fellow mom, I say this in quotes, but like it's definitely like one of those things, you connect with people that are your fellow quote unquote ag moms, and just making sure that you learn from one another and get that fulfillment that you're looking for in life, is so important. So let's shift gears and get into goals. So I am a big advocate of doing, like, I am a firm believer that you should never stop growing, you should never stop learning. Making sure that you're constantly going out of your way to pick up tidbits, learning more about different things, especially things that you're not really comfortable or even in tune with, stuff that's just wildly different from what you normally are in your daily life. So I have worked on setting goals the last few years. Actually, this past year, I had goals, I guess, in my head, but I never took the intention to write them down like I should have. So for those that want to get into just setting goals, it's, you want to talk about cliche as far as for the New Year's. But with the new year coming up, it is always a good time because it is the New Year's, like, start. And we don't want like new year, new me. Like that's, you don't want to be a new you. You want to be you, but you want to be an evolved you. And you always want to keep evolving for the best. Where should someone who has never set goals for themselves, where should they start?
Well, first of all, I love that you use the term evolved. I think, I mean, and I used to say this too, is like being the best version of yourself. Well, what does that even mean? Because like, you're still awesome right where you're at. And like, we go through so many different seasons of life.
And the best version is a target. Like, you're constantly chasing it. You're never going to actually get that. And I think some people get so caught up on the chase of being the best them, but you'll never be the best you. Like, it's a journey. It's not an end. Like, there's no end to it. It's a journey.
Right. Well, and like you said, then you're chasing an ever moving target and constantly getting trapped in this
rabbit hole of things. Yes.
Getting trapped in this cycle of like not enoughness. So I love that you said evolved, because that's so true. And like, we go through these so many different seasons of life. When I think about that time when I was oh my gosh, this cough is driving. I'm about to go get some cough drops.
You're good.
Like, it can be really dangerous to even compare to other seasons of life,
Yes. Or even other people.
And we're back.
So yeah, so someone who is starting wants to get into starting to make goals. What kind of tips should they be looking at as far as
Mm,
how do they go about setting goals? Because I know it's so important when you're making goals to be very intentional with making sure that they are actually achievable, but you
hmm.
don't want them to be open ended where there is no deadline per se, because then it's like, we're going to do that next month. Oh, we're going to do that next month. So what kind of tips
Mm.
do you think for someone getting into this?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So first of all, I could talk about this for literally hours. So we're going to try to pare it down. The first thing before you even write anything down is I think it's so important to keep in mind, like, why do I want this thing? Is it because that girl on Instagram's doing it and it looks good? Is it because my sister says it's a good idea? Is it because it sounds good? Like, is it what you actually want? And like, why do you want it? Because I think a lot of times we set goals that are very misaligned with how we actually want to show up every day. So I even like to reverse engineer it and think about of like, in an ideal situation, what does your average Wednesday look like? And if the goal that you want to reach doesn't reverse engineer and fit that, then it probably doesn't make sense in the first place. Like, it's one thing to say, like, I want to run a marathon, but like, if you don't want to get up and run every day, trying to reach that goal is never going to feel good. And that's not to say like it can't be big or scary or something you've never done before. Like, I had never in my life considered myself a runner, trained for a half marathon. I keep using this as an example just because I've done it. By no means, again, if you don't want to run, don't set that goal. But also like, oh, like I have this goal of wanting to launch a podcast. Like, do you want to edit a podcast? Or do you want to hire someone to do it? Because if not, then that goal doesn't make sense. Or I just think it's really important before you even set goals or start thinking about it to just like, is it what you actually want, or does it just sound good? And does it align with the life that you actually want to have? So that's my first piece of advice. And then, of course, like you said, just getting really down to that tangible, like, what is it going to take from where I'm at to where I want to be? And I think a lot of times when we think about goals, we think about these like big, flashy things, like starting a business or losing 20 pounds or whatever it is. But your goals can even be something like the way that you show up as a mom, or like doing things that take care of your mental health, or changing the way you energetically feel every day. And so, ooh, what's the matter, baby? This is gonna be on YouTube, right? Okay,
Oh
everyone.
yeah,
She's so cute. This
she
is
is
what it's
so cute.
like to record a podcast with a baby.
This is the second baby to be on the podcast, by the way. Side note.
Oh, this is some
So
working moms right here.
yes.
Um, so that's the first thing, is like, does this goal align with the life that I want to live? Does this goal align with the things that I want to do every day? And then breaking
100%.
that, right. And then breaking that down to like, what is this actually going to take to get there, and setting those realistic benchmarks along the way. Um, because what am I trying to say? This cop is so distracting me. Um, like, I'm all about chasing big dreams and setting big goals. But if you're saying you're going to do this and this and this and this and this in 1 year, like, I don't want to say you're setting yourself up for failure, but you're setting yourself up for a lot of frustration when things don't happen as fast as you think that they should. So yes, of course, reach for the stars. Like, I'll be the first one to tell you that anything is possible. But I also want you to be realistic in what you can do in the time that you have.
Yeah, and nothing crushes your goals harder than setting yourself all of these unattainable goals, not reaching them and not getting the satisfaction. Like, oh, I maybe got one out of nine of my goals. So then you're like discouraged, because then you're like, well, that didn't work out. So, and then, you can, depending on where you're at, you spiral down the like, oh, I failed all my goals. Like, it's terrible, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So it's definitely important to make sure that you have those, in my opinion, to have those, even just those little wins along the way, but making them attainable, because I know, what is it, like the smart setting of goals, making them attainable, written down, having some type of measurement that you can actually measure, like, you know, goal, be successful. Okay, well, what does it mean to be successful? What, in my own eyes, what do I need to accomplish to have success? But your successful is going to look completely different than someone else's successful, and you're going to have two very completely different ways of getting there. So that's definitely important to look at what that journey looks like for you, making sure that they're measurable and attainable, and definitely something that align with your goals and where you want to see yourself, because why make yourself into someone that you don't want to be?
Right. Well, I think you bring up a really good point of what does it look like to like break it down in a way that meets yourself where you're at. I was just on Mastermind this morning. We were talking about that. One of the girls has a huge vision for something that is possible to build in her community. This like event venue with Airbnbs and this and that and the other. And she, like me, is an achiever. She can see the end goal. She can see the dream and vision. And she was getting really caught up in, well, how do I do that while also being a good mom? I feel like if I do that, I'm not going to be able to do this and that and the other. And I'm like, okay, but like, what does success in this actually look like? Because it doesn't all have to be done today to be successful. Like, what does it look like to take that big vision, that goal, and that dream and break it down into even phases? Like, okay, what if we just started with one of the Airbnbs and that was your focus and that was super life-giving and you could still show up as the kind of mom and wife that you want to be? And then what does it look like to next year then take on the next step of it? Like, something doesn't have to be all or nothing to be worth your time. And that's where a lot of us, who's stressed about grades are like, I have to do it 100%. I need the gold star. I need the A+, or I can't do it at all. I'm trash. Like, it's all trash. It's
being
like,
a people pleaser.
Yes. And it's like, no. Honor the season of life that you're in. It doesn't have to be all or nothing to be worth your time. And in fact, if you're talking about sustainable long-term progress in anything, it's those small building blocks that actually build up to the big thing. So whether you're talking about something like building habits, like, and I love that you said like defining, like, what does it mean to be more successful? I see this so much, especially in the new year with like, I want to be healthier. I want to eat healthier. Well, what the heck does that even mean? Like, 2 Oreos versus 200 Oreos? Like, I don't know. Like, actually breaking down to, if you are talking about something like nutrition, maybe it's a certain nutrition plan that you work with a dietitian or a nutritionist on. Maybe it's incorporating a vegetable into every meal. Like, it doesn't have to be this big, like total 180 to be worth your time at all. Maybe it's drinking one more bottle of water. Maybe it's going outside for a 10-minute walk. And that's why I love this habit challenge that I've created called You Do You 82, is like breaking down into those small, consistent wins that then stack on top of each other. This is where so many people get New Year's resolutions totally wrong. They're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. I'm like, you haven't done any of those things in the last 10 years and you think you're going to sustainably start them all today? Like, I'm sorry, but like reach for the stars, but no, like you're setting yourself up to feel like garbage in a few weeks because it's not realistic.
Or go off, like if you are doing a healthy eating, whatever, you're going to go off the wagon because you're like going to be like, I am sick of eating salad every single meal, every single day. I've had enough. I want like junk food and I want junk food now.
Right. So it's like meet yourself where you're at and take a look at like, what are the micro changes to get closer to where you want to be? I think if anyone listening is interested in the concept of this, the book Atomic Habits by James Clear is phenomenal because he speaks so much into making those 1% changes that you can be consistent with. Like, maybe it is, I'm going to drink one more glass of water every day. You do that for 90 days and it's going to be a lot easier to add on that second glass or that third glass. Like, there's also a quote in that book that says, like, every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. So like just bringing it down to those small decisions and giving yourself grace along the way. That's something I've definitely learned throughout this process is like, the harder we try to hold ourselves to that perfectionist mentality, the faster we're going to quote unquote fall off the wagon.
Yes.
Because it's not always realistic. And so, you get sick, your kids get sick, harvest gets crazy, something breaks down, like you got to make the cookies for the class party, whatever. And so what does it look like to stand back up, try again, and recommit to yourself the day or the week after things don't go according to plan? Because newsflash, just as soon as you make the most perfectly laid out plan, something's going to throw a wrench in it. Like,
especially if you have a farm and children and a husband. Yeah.
Like, it's just, so it's like, this whole mindset shift started for me in habits. And what does it mean to totally change my lifestyle? Not just like get on the best new workout plan or like whatever. It's like, I want sustainable lifestyle changes that I don't have to try so hard forever. Like, I'm not interested in this world of like yo-yo dieting or like crazy blah, blah, blah. Like, I want to feel good in my body. I want to make choices that honor my physical, mental, and emotional health forever without it always feeling like a battle.
100%.
And the biggest way I did that was like learning to meet myself where I was at and giving myself grace along the way. Again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing to be worthwhile.
Yep. Agreed. So what other kind of tips do you have for someone who is just new starting out?
So I think accountability can be a really huge thing. We are the worst at keeping promises to ourselves. Like,
because no one knows. They don't know if I'm holding a promise to myself or not.
No, we'll bend over backwards for literally anyone else. And if we say we're going to do something, we're the first to be like, excuse, nope, out the door. So whether that's like an accountability buddy or getting connected to a community like a mastermind or going to a retreat, like something that adds more stake to the game than just saying, I kind of want to do this. So that's the first thing. Second of all, I think a really powerful shift, whether you're talking about habits or goals or whatnot, is thinking, writing, talking, and acting like that goal is already true. And it sounds crazy, but it literally rewires our brain. It's like anytime we say, I want to, I'm trying to, I'm going to someday, we got enough in our brain as is. We got like laundry and shoes to find and like chores to do, right? And so if we say, I want to, or I'm trying to, our brain automatically goes, nope, not important. We got enough stuff to worry about. But if you start saying things like, I am, or like, I'm a person who drinks this much water every day, like whatever. I don't know why I keep coming back to that example, but
it's important.
Right. Water's important. Right. Or like, I'm a person that gets up at 5 a.m. and does this. Like, I am a runner. I lead a successful business. I have this many downloads, like whatever it is. The more you start talking about it as if it is gospel truth, your brain literally goes, oh, this is important. We got to figure out how to make this true. And so the quicker you start embodying it, even when you feel a little bit like an imposter, actually, the faster it is that you get there, because you're not fighting that resistance of I'm trying to, or I want to. Like, if you say I'm trying to eat healthy, you're automatically giving yourself an out. If you're like,
oh, I'm only trying, I'm not actually doing it. So it's fine.
Right. And so there's a lot more nerdy brain science behind it. You can go and Google all about it. It'll give you all the phrasing about all of it. But basically, thinking, writing, talking, acting as if it's already true can be game changing. Accountability, embodying it before, a really great example of this, my friend Kaya uses is, she was like, gosh, I just wish I was a hat person. And then her friend was like, so wear a hat. And she was like, no, I'm just not a hat person. And she was like, literally just put one on.
And you could be one.
Right. And so she was like, it was as simple as just deciding to start wear the hat and being like, I'm a hat person. And then sure enough, like a couple of weeks, couple of months down the road, like she's just a person who wears hats. And that's like such a simple example. But how often do we tell ourselves that's for someone else, not for me? I wish I was a person who did blah, blah, blah. I wish I could do this like they do. Oh my gosh, like I could never. And it's like, but you just
Why?
decided that. Like, why? Do it. Just wear the
Agreed.
hat.
Yeah, just do it up.
Right.
I agree.
So yeah. And then, like you said, like getting down to that, like getting specific. And if it makes sense, like setting some sort of timeline to it can be super powerful. But one thing I've come to know is like not all goals are super measurable or super time specific. Like sometimes a really big goal could be working on changing your mindset. Well, that's not something you can quantify or be like, by October, my mindset's going to look like this. Like you can identify a lot of things to help you get there. You can start going to therapy. You can work with a coach. You can read different types of books. You can listen to podcasts, but like you can't measure what your mindset looks like. You can't measure like wanting to show up differently for your family, but you can take a lot of steps to get there and you can identify what that looks like along the way. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've kind of, my understanding of SMART goals has kind of turned upside down the more I work with people on what their goals look like.
Oh, definitely.
Because again, we hold ourselves to such crazy, unrealistic standards. And it's like, well, sometimes the work, I actually released a podcast episode about this a couple weeks ago. Sometimes the work that no one sees is just as important as the flashy things that are easy to talk about, like, you know, hitting a certain career milestone or whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. So, and I'm definitely like a firm believer in writing those goals down because that helps you hold yourself accountable, which obviously 2023, I might have let that slide too much, which frustrated me, but that's fine.
But
That's
also,
what I'm here for.
That's for whatever reason, that's what you needed in this season. So
Yep.
meet yourself where you're at. It wasn't the year for whatever those goals were supposed to be. They didn't happen.
And I mean, I had those goals in my head, but I just didn't write them down per se, which it's neither here nor there. There's nothing, I can't go back in time and change that. So that's where we're at. I mean, I did start the podcast. I did consistently go to the gym. So I'm going to be happy with that. Like 2 wins. Wins is good. So for someone that is like a goal setter, a doer, things like that, what kind of tips for the more seasoned person that likes to do those goals, what kind of tips do you have for them?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
So for someone like me who just needs kind of that little extra motivation to like spend that extra time, because that's, you know, the $1 million question. Well, where do I get more time from? Where do I get more time from? Or, oh, I don't have time, or you push it off because it's not quote unquote the most important thing that you have to do at that point in time. But like, how do you remotivate yourself to get that drive to do those things?
Well, I think that asks a much bigger question is like, if the time hasn't been made for it, first of all, where is that time being spent? And why has that not been a priority? And that's a much bigger question because you're right. We can't fabricate more time.
No.
Like, gosh, it'd be great. So I think in that place, it's really important to take inventory of where is your time and where is your priority and where's your energy going? Like I know for me, I have spent so many more hours scrolling the stupid Instagram app this year than I care to admit. So if I want to get really honest with myself about why certain things haven't gotten done, I know without looking in the mirror that that's a reason. And I'm not imposing that on you or anyone else, but you know, I think there is like, why? Well, I know for me, I didn't feel good for a lot of this year. I was pregnant and I felt super nauseous and I wanted to like crawl in a hole and not exist. And so it was easier to scroll on Instagram than it was to do the hard things that were on my to-do list.
It always is easier.
Right. And so that for me invites a conversation of like, okay, how do I either add less resistance to the things that I say that I want to do that I'm not, or what role are those things actually playing? And is there a reason that I'm not doing them? Maybe I shouldn't be doing them. Maybe I need to reevaluate that goal. And as far as like, you know, the motivation standpoint is like just taking that inventory of like, what is my life looking like? Where am I? Like I said, spending time, effort, energy, whatnot, and where do priorities need to shift? Because if I can't add more time, then I got to take it away from something else. Is it sleep? Is it social media? Is it time from work? Is it redoing something? Is it getting something off my plate that's no longer serving me anymore? Which I think can be really hard. Like you said, is recovering people pleasers and perfectionists. It's like we want to
Yes.
do all the things for all the people. We just can't. So where do I need to
Yes.
ask for help? Or, you know, I think it's really hard to let go of a good season and something that we love or something that's really served us. But
Sometimes you
taking,
need to grow.
yeah, taking that 360 view of life and being like, do I love this anymore? Could someone else be doing this? Does this even play a role in what I need to be doing in the first place? Why do I think this is important? And then as you're looking into the new year, being able to be like, okay, so in an ideal world, what would I, and obviously we know it's all going to things can get thrown to chaos, but I've done this activity with so many clients of like, let's go through every hour of every day of the week, which sounds insane because you're like, oh no, I'm just going to wing it. Just imagine best case scenario. Where are we going to fit in the laundry? Where are we going to fit in the morning chores? Where are we going to fit in time on my computer? Where are you going to fit in running to the grocery store? And being able to lay it all out really shows, oh, either here's an opportunity to do this thing I didn't think I had time for, or wow, I'm at max capacity. No wonder I couldn't spend any time on that goal. I actually don't have any time. It's not worth me feeling bad about it. But if it's a priority, what's got to change?
Yes, 100%. And sometimes I think that's one of those things that I need to sit down and look at because I am on the go probably more than I should be.
Mm,
But I'm also, yes, one of those people that's like, but I don't
I
want to give
gotta do
anything
it all.
up.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go.
Yeah, that comes up so often at the retreat and in masterminds. It's like, oh, I'm so stressed. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't have any time. Why can't I make any progress on my business? And I'm like, let's lay out everything that's on your plate. And it's like this and 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 this. And it's like,
Yep.
homegirl, you doing too much. Like you took this achiever thing too far.
Yes.
If you do bring that goal to life, you will be a shell of a person because you actually don't have anything else to give.
Yeah.
Hello, speaking from burning out in my life too many times and having a lot more self-awareness because of therapy about why.
Yes. I definitely realize that frequently, but
Mm-hmm.
right now we're at a transition time in my life and we're just going to keep
Mm-hmm.
moving with it.
Yeah, and you got
That's
to
where I'm at.
be just like anything, you got to be gentle with what that process looks like. It's not as easy as being like, well, tomorrow I'm going to be a totally different person. Like,
Yeah. No, you're not. You're going to be the same person that you were today.
right. And then 24 hours from now, you're going to say, tomorrow, I'm going to be a totally different person. And that's just not how it works. So,
No.
again, like, what are those micro changes? What can we start slowly transitioning and then celebrating those wins along the way? Because, gosh, I know so many of us, we get to the goal that we've always dreamed of, and we're already like, oh, I didn't do it good enough, or I'm on to the next thing. Like,
Oh, I'm an on to the next thing person. I'm always just like, oh, okay, we did that. Now what's next? Where do we go from
exactly.
here? Like, hold on. Where?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm that person.
Yeah.
I'm
And
that.
a really great book for that is The Gap and the Gain. That's a
I've
really
read it. Yep.
that's really helped me reframe my thoughts around that.
Yes,
But
I
again,
been there, read that. That was a Tara and Natalie recommended book, wasn't it? Were you?
um,
I feel
I
like
think I
that's
read
where I
it
heard
before.
that from.
I think I read it before them, but I think that they have talked about it. Yeah.
Yep, I think that that's where I heard about it and then went and
Mm-hmm.
read about it. So,
Yeah.
well, good.
So good.
Hopefully this little chat inspired people to go out, do those little things an inch at a time, and just keep on chugging
Mm-hmm.
away at
Mm-hmm.
being where they are happy.
Yes.
So I like to wrap up my episodes with a couple fun questions just to get to know
Ooh,
you more and have fun because life's too short to not have fun. That's what.
I love
Um,
it.
so you mentioned that you've done a little bit of traveling when you went abroad
Mm-hmm.
with college.
Mm-hmm.
What is your dream place to visit?
Mm. Oh gosh, that's such a good question. I don't know that I can pinpoint to one place. I'm just down for like an adventure. Like, let's go hike in the mountains. Let's go hang out at the beach. Let's go Euro trip. Like, gosh, there's just so many places. I don't know. I'm not like firmly a beach person or a mountain person or a city person when I travel. Like I like a lot of diversity. So I would love at some point in my life to go to one of those places where like, you know, the little huts are like on their own little island and the crystal
Yes.
blue water. Like,
Yep.
I don't know where that is. I don't even care. Like, but I would
Yep.
love to experience like, and I want to be like bougie about it. Like, I want it to be I want to feel like I'm in a movie.
The glass bottom to the floor, like the glass floor where you look down and you're like, oh, fish.
Yes, like the little huts. Like, bring
The
me a pina colada. I don't know.
oh, I thought I remembered where they were, but now it's gone.
There's
Too bad
probably
my mom
multiple
wasn't
places.
here. She'd be able to tell me. She knows all of that fun stuff. Um, your go-to music genre.
Hmm. Okay, so I kind of alternate between three. One is either like red dirt country, like Texas country kind of, or like late 2000s, I don't even know, pop, punk, like emo, like All American Rejects, Boys Like
Oh,
Girls,
yep.
like, you know, just like teenage angst has got to come out. I'm on a run right now. Or like I don't care, as cliche as it sounds, like you could put on Taylor Swift radio and I'm happy. Like, and she's a genre in herself at this point. So many of our albums are so different. Like,
Yeah, pretty much.
there's a Taylor Swift song for any mood. So yeah,
Pretty
I would
much.
say between those three, which are very different, but that's
I
okay.
My playlist is very varied as well. So yeah, I've got like your normal country, but I love like 90s country.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'll go into like the early 2000s hip hop because why not?
Yeah. Why
And then
not?
you go to like Blink 182, Sum
Mm-hmm.
41, like a little Linkin Park spread in there. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
but then I like pop, like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys. Sure, why not? Like all the
Yeah.
things.
It's just whatever fits the mood.
Yes, because that's so we were talking earlier before we started the podcast about my road trip, my 16-hour one-way road trip to Henderson, Kentucky,
Yes.
because girl needed a horse. And my friend that had gone with me, I was like, just a heads up, like we put my playlist on, like it's all over the
You
place.
never know.
And she's like, every single thing that came on, she's like, yes. And I was like, yes, okay, we are meant to be like best friends. Like
I love it.
this is where it's at
I
because
love it.
understand me.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
All right. You are out and about. You have to get fast food somewheres. What's your
Mm.
go-to? Like there's no
Mm.
shot of getting a sit-down meal or going home and cooking. What's your
Mm.
go-to?
Okay, so I actually my body cannot tolerate gluten or dairy.
Oh
I
no.
I promise my
Jeez.
kids keep the dairy industry running. I
Jeez.
promise.
All right, that's it.
I am not an anti-dairy person. My digestive system is, okay? I won't go into detail, but we've been through the ringer. We have discovered that that is in fact the problem. It makes me very sad. I miss cheese often. So, going out to eat is actually very hard
Oh gosh.
because not when you knock out gluten and dairy, fast food
Yeah, it
is
is.
tricky. It's very
My
tricky.
sister-in-law is, well, she used to be gluten and dairy, but now she can do
Mm.
some dairy. She figured out a way to like reintroduce it to herself
Mm-hmm.
in like certain proportions that she can
Mm-hmm.
tolerate it. But I
It's rough.
understand it does stink.
It's rough.
I have a
I
funny question.
if it's like butter or it's something cooked in or just like a little sprinkle of cheese, like we can manage. But like, oh my gosh, eating like a Domino's pizza would send
Oh,
me into
a coma.
it would be bad. It would be
Yeah.
very bad.
Okay, we don't want to do that
Okay.
then.
Okay. So I have to go to like places that are more like quick serve style.
Ah,
So like a Panera, I can usually
yep.
find something good at. And fun fact, I grew up in the St. Louis area, and in St. Louis, it's called St. Louis Bread Company, not Panera. And everyone
Really?
calls it Bread Co. And so when I went to college, everyone was like, let's go to Panera. I'm like, what's Panera? We show up, I'm like, oh, Bread Co. They're like,
Ah,
what? Um, but yeah, something like that, or something like there's all different kinds of chains, but something like a Qdoba, Chipotle, like something where it's like a burrito bowl situation. Like that's usually a safe bet. Yeah, it's sad to be
that,
me,
that's
especially
great.
traveling.
Yeah,
Traveling is hard.
Yeah, that's a tough go.
Oh, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is usually I can figure something out.
I do love some Chick-fil-A. It was
Mhm.
really sad the last time we have it in our airport. And the last time I flew out, like I love to get, if I fly out in the morning, I love to get like the little breakfast sandwichy, like
Mm.
just like a little mini like
Mhm.
bun and a piece of chicken, and they're
So good.
amazing. And it was a Sunday, and I was really disappointed because, of course,
Oh,
wasn't even thinking about it. And I
you're
was like,
always
oh, I think I'm gonna grab blah 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 from Chick-fil-A. And my mom was like,
mm,
I'm sorry, it's
but you
Sunday. And I
can't.
was like,
Yeah.
no, ruined my life.
Worst.
I
The
know. It was terrible.
worst. Okay, so
So,
I guess my short answer is Chick-fil-A. I kind of forgot about that when you first answered the question.
oh
But yeah,
yeah.
that's my
Good for you.
confession. I have nothing against the dairy. Dairy, great.
Good thing. No,
I just,
I wore my
guys,
cow spotted sweatshirt for you.
I know it's so sad. It's so sad. But it's even sadder when I eat it and
And
feel
you really
so.
don't feel good. Yep, I get that.
There are many ramifications. We won't go into detail.
Oh my gosh, Emily, it's been so much fun chatting with you today. Where can people find you if they want to follow along on your journey?
Absolutely. So I'm most active on Instagram at Emily, spelled Emily, Reuschel, Reuschel. Can also find me on Facebook, but not as much has happened in there. Website is emilyreuschel.com.
And I'll
In
link
my
those in the show notes for spellings, so it'll make it easy.
yes, thank you. And my podcast is called Gather and Growth, and we talk about all things personal and professional growth for rural women. So it's a good
Awesome.
time. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So thank you so very, very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Again, thank you to 4D Ag Fashion and 4D Ag World for sponsoring this episode. And we will talk to you next time. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and leave a review. You can find me on most social media platforms at Dairy Gal Val or online at dairygalval.com. Thank you so much for coming to the Dairy Hour.